basis we determine how we're going to handle the stuff that God has trusted us with, right? And then the third is God has blessed us to bless others. And I'm going to ask you to ask yourself, if he has given you more than you need, why? So let's go over the first one. The first principle is, does that say one, two? Yeah, one. Okay, the first principle is, I'll get back to it, sorry. That God is the owner of all, therefore we own how much? Nothing. You and I own nothing. Anybody ever seen the U-Haul trailer follow the hearse to the cemetery? No, you aren't going to see it. Because we come into this earth with nothing, and we leave with how much? Nothing. You leave it all behind. And so Psalms 24:1 says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and everything in the world, and they that dwell therein. And then I like Psalm 50:10-12 that says, for every beast of the forest is mine, God says, and the cattle upon 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the air and so forth. It tells about it's all mine. He clarifies that everything in this world belongs to him. Now, I don't know about you, but there's been times in my life as a provider, I've had to say, God, I need your help because I'm in a tough time. Anybody here ever have a tough time financially and you need some help? Well, just imagine if you had 110 kids looking at you, expecting you to feed them, provide utilities, because everything was run on offerings at the Children's Mansion. Now, I was raised on a farm in Howard County, Indiana, until I was around 12. And my dad had cattle and he had pigs. And when he had a tough time financially, you know what he'd do? He'd load up some of those cattle or some of those pigs. He'd take them off to the market and he'd come home with some CIF. Does anyone know what CIF is? Cash in fist. And he would take care of his family. Now, I didn't mind working. I'm kind of like a workaholic. And we would sometimes go to 24 camp meetings in the summer with 33 kids on a bus, traveling sometimes overnight, every night, for a week at a time, just in time to get to a camp meeting someplace to talk about the mansion. And we traveled all year long, usually at different times and weekends, to raise funds. I didn't mind doing that. But every now and then, the needs were bigger than what I could handle. And I would remind the Lord, based upon my experience of my dad, you said, you own the cattle on 1,000 hills. I need you to take some of them to the market and send me the cash in fist. And I want to tell you, God was always faithful. I don't remember a year of the 23 years that we were president that the year by January 15th, every bill was paid off. I never went into the next year with a heavy debt. God was faithful. But every now and then, you have to ask the Lord, you're the one that said you own the cattle on 1,000 hills. I need some help. Can I hear an amen? In the meantime, we've got a plan to take care of things ourselves. So the second principle is that we are stewards. We don't own a thing. And so Matthew 25 says, for the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country who called his own servants and delivered unto them their goods, his goods. The Lord allows you and I to manage his goods. None of it's ours. I don't care the car you drive, the money that's in your checking account, your savings account, your clothes on your back. Everything really does belong to God. We aren't going to take a thing with us. And so you have to understand we're going to answer someday like the talents that were given to the 3 men, the 5, the 2, and the 1. And he asked them one day, what did you do with what I trusted you with? The ones that multiplied and made difference with those talents that they were given, he said to them, what? Well done, thou good and faithful servant. Come on in. I want to give you a hug. That's Drury adding on, okay? But the one who didn't manage well, he had a problem. And so I'm here to tell you that I want to help you scripturally understand your responsibility and how to take care of some of those things. It used to be that when we lived on the farm 100 years ago, if Grandpa died, the next generation moved into the farmhouse. They may add on another room for Grandma, but she was taken good care of. That isn't the way it happens in our society today. It's a different world. So there are instruments that you can use and planning tools you can use to fulfill the scripture to care for those of your own household. And that's what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. So principle number 3, God has blessed us. And why? To bless others. And so 1 Timothy 5 and 8, I've already read it to you. I'm not going to go over it. But Galatians 6:10 says, as we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto some people. What does it say? Everyone say all. All men, especially though, to them of the household of faith. We are to help our brothers and sisters when they have a crisis that is a true crisis. We should do that. God gives us that extra opportunity to do that. And so he expects us, according to scripture, to bless others. Some folks that you'll help with, say, a food pantry or whatever, they may never know God, or they may never serve the Lord, and you say, well, I'm not going to give to that. Really? You're still supposed to show a Christian spirit in helping others. And so I want you to know that you have a responsibility. So I did mention this in service early this morning. There are 40 scriptures in the Bible about baptism. There are 275 about prayer. There are 350 about faith. There are 650 about love, but there's 2,350 scriptures about finance, material possessions, and wealth. Now, I can tell you from a pastor's standpoint, people understand they need to get those sins washed away when you preach on it. But every now and then, you've got to talk about prayer. I mean, because prayer isn't quite as easy for us to get into because you have to sacrifice a little bit more of your time and your energy. And then, of course, faith, we all have to be preached to about our faith in believing that God's going to help us with certain things. But then I want to tell you, everybody in the congregation has a different personality. And every now and then you've got to be preached to about you've got to love everybody in the congregation because we all have our opinions. Have you ever run into anybody that had an opinion, Brother Brown? Yeah. And so we have to learn to love one another in spite of our differences. But then there's 2,350 scriptures on material possessions, finance, and wealth. What do you think the Lord thought we were going to have the biggest battle with? Stuff. Now, I'm not going to ask you how many of you, I don't want you to raise your hand, have stuff parked in a storage shed somewhere and you're paying for it to be stored and you never use it. I'm not going to ask for hands. Because we are people that like to gather, keep, and it's ours. No, it isn't. Now, I hope I don't offend my wife, but when we moved to, I think it was St. Louis, she and my daughter said, we're going to have a garage sale. I said, I won't be around. And when I got done, when I came back from speaking that weekend, they said, guess how much money we made? And I said, do you have a clue how much I paid for that stuff for you to make that kind of money with? Because we just naturally like to buy, get. It's a natural tendency of wanting to own, quote unquote. But when you die, you never really owned it. So what I want to talk about tonight is a lot of different things. Whoops, I think I skipped one. So what does endow mean? I want to present this from an understanding of endow. Endow means to equip or supply with a talent or a quality. To equip with a supply, you endow somebody with something or a talent. God gave us different talents. The second meaning of endow is to provide with property, income, or a source of income. Now, the endowments that we have in the United Pentecostal Foundation create gifts on an annual basis to give with income to do ministry with. That is an endowment. But God endowed me with some talents. He endowed you with some talents. And every last one of us have different talents that God has given us. And God is going to ask us someday, what did you do with what I gave you? So let me kind of give it into some spiritual realm of teaching. And we're going to look at it from the standpoint of caring or endowing or providing for your family to fulfill 1 Timothy 5 and 8. And we all have three things. We all have the time that we have here on earth. We all have the talent that God has given us here on earth. And we all have some treasure. Some have more treasure than others. But God is going to base his judgment on these three things. What did you do with the time I gave you? What did you do with the talents I gave you? And what did you do with the treasure I gave you? And so I'm going to look at these individually, and then I'm going to kind of come back and give you answers of how to go about it. So I think the first thing you need to do, I told you today that I hadn't done this for over a year, so if you'll forgive me, I'm a little rusty in some of it here. So the first one is the time. I'll never forget, I was president of the Children's Mansion, pastoring a church, Brother Brown, and I was section secretary. I was chairman of the district budget committee. I was secretary of the men's ministry, secretary of the long-range planning committee, and my district superintendent, Brother Travis, gave me a book on how to live a balanced life. I said, Brother Travis, I've got to give up all my district jobs in order to live a balanced life. But all of us have to live a balanced life. And I call it a balance between work, play, rest, and worship. It's something that you have to constantly work at. I don't care how old you are or how young you are. If you work too much, you're dull. You don't have any activity time to be involved in church or give yourself to your children or your spouse in time. And you know some folks who are workaholics. And then, of course, you have those that want to play. Now, I'm not against men hunting, so don't shoot at me here. I'm not against ladies who like all of their shopping trips. But I'm here to tell you, you can get around to doing so much playtime that you finally forget about doing your work time or spending time with family or getting rest. Have you ever been around anybody that didn't get enough rest? Do you want to be around them? No. So what about spending time with your family? You need to, your kids aren't going to care if you buy them a bunch of toys. I'm here to tell you, they'd rather have mom and dad's time than they would all of the stuff. They'll remember that better. So how do you do that? Well, I kind of look at it as a fulcrum. Remember we used to have those teeter-totters out in the play area at the parks? I don't know if they still have those or not. But you had to move the fulcrum depending on what was too heavy on one end. And so you have to figure out your time of how you are going to manage your work, your rest, your play, and your worship. Because all of them can get out of balance. We won a couple to the Lord in Tupelo, Mississippi, and I had a habit of calling a week of prayer every year the first week of January. And Carl was his name. And I was so proud of him. He was there every day and night and afternoon and morning. And so we had a powerful service, and so I decided, well, we're going to carry this on for another week, and everybody seemed to enjoy that, and it was carrying through the church as a powerful giving of yourself to the Lord and communicating with him. Guess what? Carl was there every morning, noon, afternoon, and night. I finally said, Carl, I'm proud of you. How did you have this much vacation time? Oh, no, sir. He said, you told us we need to learn how to pray. I quit my job. I said, well, how are you paying bills? Oh, he said, my wife, Christine, said she has 2 jobs and she's out on an interview of another one so that she can help pay the bills. I said, come on now, we need to have a pastoral meeting. You need to get that job back, and you need to be the provider of your family. You see, any of us can get off balance with some ideas or concepts, and we don't keep our work, play, rest, and worship in balance. So why am I telling you that? Because you're going to answer someday. If you didn't give your family enough attention and they walk away from God, it's because you didn't spend enough time with them. You're going to answer for that. If you didn't spend enough time at church worshiping and you lost out with God, that's going to be something you're going to answer for. If you become a workaholic and you forget about going to church, all of those things can become a problem. So for you to fulfill 1 Timothy 5 and 8, caring for your family, you have to teach your family how to live a balanced life. Now, the next is your talent. All of us, as I've said, have different talent. And I think it is you taking whatever talent God has given you and you getting the best education you can to make a living. Now, I asked for some of the young people to be here tonight for an understanding of this. And this is what I want to tell you. You get the best education you can that provides for you better and your family, including your being able to give to the family of God. So I want to tell you, adult learning is in. Let me say that again. Adult learning is in. You can go back to school in your older age. And there's nothing wrong with that. I hope my wife doesn't mind me using her. She went to Covenant College, and the college said, we would like to take your picture and use you in some of our publications. This is in Lookout Mountain, Georgia. And she says, I know why. And they said, why? Because of my gray hair. They said, absolutely. We want to show people that somebody with gray hair can still go to college. She got her master's there. She went to Oral Roberts and got her doctorate in education. And I think you were, 58 or something like that when you graduated? Yeah. Oral Roberts. Oh, 69. Well, she still looks young to me, so, But my point is, you don't need to stop learning. I used to hear people say that the scripture that talks about, oh, good grief, my mind went blank. You threw me off telling me you're that old when you finish your education. Well, anyway, we all need to work towards keeping our mind active and learning and going to school. So what I want to tell you, that's the scripture I wanted to use. To study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed. I used to think that was for the pastor. Guess what? It's not just for the pastor. It's for all of us. We need to keep our mind active and we need to keep learning. Boy, I'll move on. And so what do you do with your natural family? When you do the best you can in getting the best education you can for your talent, your spouse and your children, your grandchildren, even your parents end up doing better because they see you doing better. You see, everybody around us is affected by the way we live, the way we act, and the way we talk, and the way we think. You affect everybody around you. So your day-to-day provisions of food, your shelter, your housing, clothing, education, your emotional concepts, your spiritual, your fun, your playtime, all of that is taught to your children and your grandchildren the way you live. Now, what I want to tell you is the rising tide lifts all ships here, even in this church. So I like to tell this story. One of the boys that we were raising at the Children's Mansion, his mother died when he was 18 months old of cancer. She died of cancer when he was 18 months old. And he was placed at the Children's Mansion by an aunt that got custody of him because his father was in prison for murdering someone. He had an uncle that was aware that this boy knew that he also was involved in the murder, but he didn't get convicted, and he tried to take this boy's, nephew's life a couple of times. The aunt got custody of him and placed him at the children's mansion to protect him. Didn't tell anyone where he was. Well, we had dentists in town that would provide free service for orthodontics, 2 or 3 of the children a year. And this boy was taken because he needed braces. And the house mother called my wife one day and said, would you go pick James up from school? From the orthodontist, because all the other kids are coming home and I need to fix them their snack and so forth. And so Evelyn said, well, I could do that. So she went and picked James up, and on the way home she said, you know, Brother Drury and I are building a house, and I haven't been there for a week. If you don't mind, I'd like to go by and see that before I go to the campus, because once we got on the campus, our life was always just busy, 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 busy. And so she took him through on a tour of the house, and she showed him where grandmother was going to live, my mother, when she retired, and where our bedroom was, the girls' bedroom upstairs, and then the guest room. And he said, oh, my room, huh? She didn't think anything about it until the next week or so. After she got off of the organ one Sunday morning, James tapped her on the shoulder and said, may I speak to you? And she said, sure. And then he said, if you don't mind, do you mind coming over here where the other kids can't hear? And then he put his arm around her and looked her in the eye and said, I just want you to know, if you ever need a son, I'm available. Guess who moved in with us? Now, why did I tell you that? Because he is not aware of one family member that has ever graduated from high school. But because we adopted him and he became a Drury and he followed his mother, whom he wanted to have a mother. The year she graduated with her doctorate in education, the next year he graduated with his doctorate in education in St. Louis. I want you to know you affect your family and those around you. But I'm here also to tell you, Pastor, that when you get somebody that gets a better education in a trade or in any other area, they're going to touch people's lives where they work, and they're going to win more people, and it becomes a way to become a soul winner. I'm here to tell you, you need to take whatever talent God has given you, and you need to get the best education you can to make a difference, because it affects not only your family, but the community in which you live. So I'm not going to read any of this, but I'm here to tell you, people who get educations make more money than those who don't have an education. And that goes back to fulfilling 1 Timothy 5:8. Now, let me be clear. College education is not for everybody. And I also want to be clear that some of the trades, vocational school and trade school, many of those people make more money than the people with a college education. So don't get hung up on a college education. You take whatever talent God has given you, and you find whatever will educate you the best to make the best living. That's what's important. If you told me I had to go back to college, well, I tried it once. I get hives. I'm just not built for higher education. I've taken a lot of classes to be certified in things, such as what I'm doing here tonight. But I'm not a college student bound in my older years. I am too ADD, and I'll just pass that on. So what we've talked about is today. Everyone say today. Today, I've taught you about how you need to do the best you can to provide for your families. Okay? The next thing is, have you ever realized that more money that people make, some of them, the further in debt they get? So the secret is that you learn how to spend the money that you make. And I am so thrilled that your church is providing Financial Peace University. It is the best opportunity for you to learn how to manage your money. And so at the Children's Mansion, Brother Tenney was the chairman of the budget committee. And he used to tell me, Steve, get the woodpecker above the water line. Now, what does that mean? Your ship is going to sink if the water starts leaking in and you end up having too much debt. So you get rid of the debt and you live as free of debt as possible. So what I believe in is you need to find those avenues, and your pastor is providing it for you. You need to take advantage of it. So make money, and then how do you spend and manage that money? The next is you need a savings for a rainy day fund. You need at least 3 months, if not 6 months, of income set aside for an emergency. I will tell you what's happened in our house since November. In November, the humidifier went out on the furnace, a little over $1,000. Christmas Day, my wife went to put the food in the oven, and the oven wouldn't work. I had to take it next door to our neighbors and finish baking the Christmas dinner. 2 days later, the hot water heater quit. I had to replace the hot water heater. That's all happened within 30 days' time. And what would happen if we didn't have the cash? I have no debt on any of that, folks, because I put away a rainy day fund so that I didn't have to charge those needs to be taken care of. You need to have a fund for those emergency situations. And then what I want to talk about next is tomorrow. Anybody want to live until tomorrow? Oh my, some of you don't want to? You want to live till tomorrow? Well, if you're going to live my age, you're going to meet up with what is called retirement. And I'm here to tell you, if you hadn't planned, you're going to have a miserable life. And a lot of folks, what they do is they spend so much that they live like nobody else lives. And then when they retire, they're going to, they drove the nice new car and the nice new home, and then all of a sudden they can't afford it, so they're living in an apartment and driving a beat-up car. I'd rather start off as a young person driving the beat-up car and live in an apartment and live within my means and grow until I could live, even in my retirement years, driving a nice vehicle and living in a nice place. But if you don't plan, let me tell you, you're going to struggle in your retirement years. So I have some scriptures here for you, and that is Genesis 41:35. God gave Joseph a dream that saved God's chosen people to put away the fifth part in the good years for the bad years. Now, Evelyn and I have never made a whole lot of money, but we've lived nice. God's been good to us. But the last probably 15 years working at headquarters, I put away 20% of everything that I made because I could do it at that point in time. And if I hadn't have done that, I'd probably be coming in here in a used car. I'd be probably moving into an apartment. I don't know. Right now, I think we can live till we're about 90 and be okay. But after that, I might be in trouble again, Pastor, and say, hey, I need a little more help here. I don't know. But my point is, you need to plan for this. Matter of fact, the scripture says, I like what this says, go to the ant, you sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, who having no guide, a little tiny ant, no overseer, no ruler, provides her food in the summer and gathers her food in the harvest. I'm sorry. How long will you sleep, O sluggard? When will you arise out of your sleep? Get a little sleep, yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall your poverty come upon you like a vagabond, and your want like an armed man. What does that mean? People who steal typically is because they haven't gotten enough to take care of themselves otherwise. Wake up. So I want you to plan for tomorrow. Typically, that is that you put away 10 to 12.5% of your income. That is the benchmark that you need to be doing from the beginning. Now, I don't know if you anybody here want to be a millionaire? Huh? All night? Only? No, not only. How many would like to have $1 million? Can I tell you the secret? When you are in your late teens, you start putting away $25 a week in a savings account. By the time you're 55 or 60, you'll have $1 million. It isn't a mystery, because that money makes money, and when it makes money and you leave it in there, that money that made money makes money, and it multiplies. So you don't have to think about this being, I've got to be wealthy. No, just quit drinking so many Starbucks a week. That's all. Put it away, $25 a week, and you could be a millionaire by the time you're 55. I'm here to tell you, we misunderstand that in our society in America. So you need to have a retirement plan, whether that's your 401k where you work, or your a benefit pension plan, IRAs. You can put away, I think it's $5,500 this year, or maybe it's $6,000 this year. And if you're 55 and older, you can put away another $500 on top of that this year. And you can do that as well as maximize your 401ks. And if you're a minister, you can do the minister's retirement fund. And I know I'm going to be talking to some about all of this tomorrow. So what is that? Well, I do it this way. After you pay your tithes, did you hear that? After you pay your tithes, because how many of you own the tithes? None of us. The first tenth always goes back to God as a faith that you believe that he's going to provide for you. It belongs to him. Pay your tithes, and then you pay yourself next. And then you live and give off of everything else. What are you to pay yourself for? That's your retirement planning. And 12.5% ends up being, if you work a 40-hour week, it ends up being the first hour of the week, or the first, the first hour of each day. You put that away, and you will be wealthy before you turn 55. I'm here to tell you, it does work. So you might, instead of living in an apartment and driving a beat-up car when you're young, like most of us did, you're going to end up that way in retirement years if you don't plan like this. You might need to find a certified financial planner, and I do have a calling card with me as somebody that if you want to have someone, I can direct you to them. So we talked about today, that's making money. 2 is budgeting your money. 3, savings for a rainy day. Tomorrow, 4 is retirement. And then I want to talk about life insurance. Life insurance is a tool, thank you. Life insurance is a tool to fulfill 1 Timothy 5 and 8. And why is that so? That is so that you can endow your family to have the money to live off of should you die young. It allows you to fulfill 1 Timothy 5 and 8 when you're gone. I know just 2 weeks ago in Ohio, and I don't know any of the details of whether he had insurance or not, but a man that I met many years ago, the house caught on fire in the middle of the night. He got his wife and 2 younger children out from downstairs. He ran upstairs to get his other 2 children, and they, all 3, died in the fire. He left a wife and 2 children. So the question is, how could he continue to provide 1 Timothy 5 and 8? Life insurance. Life insurance creates an endowment should you die young. Now, we had a reverse situation right here in your city. My first cousin's son, I think about 2.5 years ago, he came home from working at General Motors out here, and the house was on fire, and he lost his wife and 2 daughters. It happened right here in Fort Wayne. None of us know how long we're going to live here on this earth. But if you leave behind a family, you still have a responsibility to fulfill 1 Timothy 5 and 8, caring for your family. And life insurance is that endowment to care for your family. So, is your family protected is the question. If you died today, to fulfill 1 Timothy 5 and 8, could they afford the mortgage and stay in the house? Would they be able to pay the utilities and put food on the table? What about providing the education for the children that you would want to do if you were still alive? Am I making sense here? You need to have life insurance to provide that extra endowment to care for your families. So the question always is, how much? Well, usually if you have kids at home and so forth, you need about 10 times what your salary is. I recommend that you buy term insurance. It's much cheaper, and it expires in time. And if you've done the other things I've told you about, you'll have enough money to live off of and take care of your spouse if you pass away young or even old, because you have provided a retirement fund to make a difference. So I've been able to find this wonderful website called lifehappens.org. It doesn't sell anything, but in there you can go in, young men and fathers and mothers, and you can find out how much life insurance that you really need without anybody else around. You put in how old your kids are. Do you want them to go to private school, public school? Do you want them to go to college, yes or no? How much do you owe on your home? How much do you have set aside? So how much debt do you have? And all of that will then end up telling you how much life insurance you need to buy to fulfill 1 Timothy 5 and 8. I don't sell life insurance. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just here to teach you that you need to find someone to help you. Okay? A lot of folks say, well, I have life insurance where I work. Anybody here ever had your company go bankrupt and you lost your job? Anybody here? Yeah. Guess what? That life insurance disappeared. And if you had a heart attack or you developed diabetes or something in the meantime, guess what? You can't buy life insurance. So if your company provides you life insurance, thank God for it, but you go out and buy your own. Okay? Next, and I've got a lot of information up there that I'll leave this PowerPoint with them. If any of you want it, you can ask for it and they can send it to you. So some people say to me, I'm young, I'm single, do I need life insurance? Basically, all you need is enough to make sure your debts are paid off and enough to bury you. My daughter has never married. She's going to be 49 this year. She works at headquarters in Global Missions, and she lives in our lower level, a walkout area, and has a nice apartment of her own down there. And she said to me one day, Dad, do I have enough life insurance? And I said, well, is it enough to bury you? Yes. Is it enough to pay off your debts? Yes. Okay. I said, that's all. And then I thought about it a bit. No, I think you need a little bit more. So your mother and I, if you die young, we get a little something. Moving right on. Let's talk about disability insurance. Have you ever known anyone who became disabled in their younger years and couldn't work? What did that do to their family financially? Can they fulfill 1 Timothy 5 and 8, taking care of their family? I'm here to tell you, all of you who are in your working years need disability insurance in case you become disabled. Now, I know the government provides some disability, but believe me, it isn't enough to live off of. Most of the time, it's like $1,200, $1,300 a month. Have you tried to rent a place, have transportation, buy food, pay utilities on that kind of money? It's not a way to try to live. I want you to know you need disability insurance in case you become disabled. And I did some research, and what I found out that it is higher, it's surprisingly higher. A 20-year-old worker has a 3 in 10 chance of becoming disabled before reaching retirement years. My niece in Tupelo, Mississippi, her husband, how old is Wesley? 31, 32? They have 5 children. And last October, he felt knots coming up on his side of his neck. Since then, they found out he has cancer in his throat. He has not been able to work for, I think, 3 months now, 4 months. And they don't know if he'll ever be able to work. 31, healthy as can be, and all of a sudden, and because of all that chemo, they don't know if he'll ever be able to eat. He may always be on a feeding tube. None of us know what life is going to bring. And I have come to teach you what things that you need to provide to make sure you fulfill 1 Timothy 5 and 8. So we'll talk about that if you come see me, and even if you don't come and see me. You need to make sure you have retirement planning, budgeting, life insurance, disability insurance. So the vision is, anybody want that hug? Well done. Anybody want that hug from the Lord? Well done, thou good and faithful servant. So your surviving kids, spouse and kids, when you're gone, when you get to heaven. So Ecclesiastes 5:15 says, we all come to the end of our lives as naked and empty-handed as on the day we were born. We can't take our riches with us. That's what the scripture says. Now, I told him today about this man that told his wife, made his wife promise she'd put 10 $100 bills in his casket. And they did. But since she was the last one going by before they closed the lid, she slipped in a check for $1,000 and took out those 10 $100 bills. Because we take nothing with us. We leave it all behind. So now I'm going to talk about how do you provide for your family with what is left behind. So what I want to tell you is that all of us, or most of us, have 6 different things in our quiver, if you want to say it that way. That's the household goods and personal effects that we have. It's the savings that we have. It's the stocks, bonds, or investments that we have. It's the real estate that we own. And if there's anybody here that owns a business, you need to have some kind of agreement who's going to buy that business or how it's going to be sold so that it doesn't create a conundrum for your family. And then your life insurance. So I want to teach you, how do you get all of these 6 things down to your family and to any ministry that you would like to give to, or 501c3 or nonprofit? There are 4 ways you can do it. The first is you give away everything while you're living. Can you do that? Yes. You can give away everything while you're living. I know of one man that his wife passed away. They only had one daughter. And he said to me, Steve, I've already taken care of all that. I've just given everything to my daughter. I'm a pauper now. I said, well, may I ask you, sir, what happens if your daughter dies before you do? Where are you going to live? I hadn't thought of that. You see, you can give everything away, but there are some things you need to consider before you do it that way. The next way, and that's when you give everything away. If there ever is any possibility you'll need any of that, you better not give it away while you're living. And so I call it the 4 Ds. What happens if the persons you gave it to die before you do? What about if you give it to your daughter or son and they end up getting a divorce? Guess what that divorced spouse is going to get? Half of it. And guess what? Your assets that you thought were going to take care of you just kind of disappear. What about if they end up becoming an addicted gambler and they lose everything? Or what about if they desert you and they leave you and your family and they've taken all your assets? So I don't recommend you give everything away while you're living. The next is by operation of law. You can put payable on death, transfer on death, or a irrevocable trust and you make sure that everything goes to your family according to the operation of law. That can be joint tenants, tenants by the entirety, taught and trust, and payable on death. And when we're working together and I help you, we'll talk about all those things, how you can list some things, and when you pass away, it automatically is given to those people and it never goes to probate. That is a way that you can do it. And some people, that is the best way to handle it. The next way is a valid last will and testament, or a living trust. A living trust is called a revocable living trust or a revocable living trust. That means while you're living, you can change anything in that trust. But when you die, you don't own anything according to everybody else because your trust owns everything. Lots of folks do this in their estate planning so that it doesn't go to probate. And so all these things here, these 6 boxes, can go by will or living trust, last will and testament or living trust, down to your family and anybody else that you want to give to. And then the 4th way is what probably 20, 30, 40%, maybe even higher than that, have in here. You don't have a will. It's called intestate. That you have trusted the Indiana State Legislature to say how your estate is to be spent. I don't know if you trust the state to tell you everything that you're supposed to do. But maybe that's what you're doing if you don't have a last will and testament at minimum. And so what I want to tell you is that if you have children that are under the age of 18 and you don't have a will, the state's going to decide if both of you pass away before they're 18, who's going to finish raising your kids? I think the greatest thing God has ever trusted us with is to have children to raise. And I don't think the state needs to be saying who's going to finish raising them, because many people who are so liberal that they wouldn't want to place children into a Christian home to finish being raised. So if you have children under the age of 18, listen to me tonight. I want to show you how you go about taking care of that. Let me explain what a good will do. First of all, you have household goods and personal effects. You use a letter of instructions. You just say, typically on a page, this is what I have and this is who I want to give it to. Now, money separates good family members. But let me tell you, I've seen more destruction over stuff than I have money. Grandma told me that that was going to be my quilt when she died. No, she didn't. She said it was mine. Those were Grandpa's tools. He told me I was going to get that gun when he died. Oh no, he told me he was going to give it to me. And maybe he lost his sense of memory and did tell both of them. But whatever, stuff creates more confusion typically in an estate than just the money does. So the best thing you can do is list out everything that you want to give to who, and it clarifies everything. And then you end up titling your savings or whatever, your stocks, bonds, your investments, your real estate. You put it in your will and you say who is going to be responsible for managing it. That's your personal representative or your executor of your estate. And then if you have minor children under the age of 18, you need to establish who do you want to finish raising your children. Now, I'm going to tell you, the hardest thing any of you women are going to do when I talk with you is to put down a name who will finish raising your kids should both you and your husband die. Because that is the most important thing God has ever given you to take care of. Have I ever seen where both parents died before the children turned 18? Yes. Evelyn and I have raised some of those at the Children's Mansion. It does happen. And you need to be able to say who you want to finish raising them. Nobody's going to raise them the same way you did or would. Nobody. But you find somebody, but I suggest you check with your pastor first before you put the name down permanently, because he may know something he's never told you or told anybody. because he doesn't tell everything he knows. But you need to check with him first. Is this okay for me to put their name down? So I always get this question, do I have to tell him? You might want to. You might not want to surprise them that much. But I have folks that don't, which is fine too. They just think they're going to live on, and most everybody I've worked with has lived on, but I do know some that haven't. So then you need to have durable powers of attorney. Who's going to manage your property if you become disabled or you have disability? Who's going to pay your bills? And those are durable powers of attorney. If you have minor children, you create what is called a family trust. It's just wording in your will that all those assets go into that family trust, and it's managed by a trust department at a local bank. And those trust officers, you don't want somebody that's related to you managing that money and dispersing it, because you're going to have family issues over that. You find a neutral party at a bank, and if they become an alcoholic or drug addict, they fire them and they hire somebody else that has the same capacity. It's overseen by a court every year that all of those funds have been distributed properly according to your wishes and your will. Just some wisdom of years of experience here. And then you decide, well, what happens when they all turn 21? You just give them all that money, right? Pardon?
Not necessarily.
No, not necessarily. Guess what happens if kids get too much money too quick? Are they going to go on to college? They're going to say, oh, I've got enough money, I'll live forever on this, right? That doesn't happen. So we recommend, and most attorneys will recommend, that you divide it up into 3 distributions. You wait until the youngest has turned 21, and you make the first distribution. Why? Because you need all of that money together to help all of them, because the youngest one, if goes to college, it's going to cost a whole lot more than the oldest one went to college, because every year those costs go up. So you keep that pool of money together until the youngest is old enough to receive some of it, and then you distribute a third. A couple of years later, you distribute another third, and then 2 or 3 years later, you distribute the final third. Hopefully by then, they will have enough wisdom and experience to put some of that money away and use it for the future. And then, of course, if you have no minor children, how are you going to distribute your money and your property to your beneficiaries? So that is the way a good will or living trust is going to look. So how do you pick somebody that's going to be your executor or personal representative? Well, I recommend that you make sure that it's someone that's local, close by, because there's going to be a lot of business transactions that need to take place. If you're a first cousin that you think is going to do a good job, but he lives in Singapore, I wouldn't think that's a good option. I would recommend that they have enough ability to manage a checkbook and balance a checkbook. Just saying. So how do you pick someone that's going to finish raising your kids? I wouldn't recommend anybody that's never raised kids. You know, when these babies are born, you don't know what to do with them, but you finally learn their personalities and you learn how to manage issues. But I'm here to tell you, you take a bunch of teenagers into your house all at one time and try to raise them, and you've never raised any kids? Not a good idea. We learned that at the New Beginnings. We place 3 children from one family because this man and wife go to a great church. They've been there for all their lives, and their pastor gave them the highest recommendation. Everybody else gave them the highest recommendations. We put those 3 teenagers in there. Their house was paid for. It had the same carpet, the same paint in the walls when they built it 20 years before, and they were happy with it that way. And these 3 teenage girls came in. Can you believe they wanted posters on their wall? They wanted phones. They wanted loud music. They wanted to have their friends over, and that lady had a nervous breakdown. We had to remove those kids and place them someplace else. So I'm here to tell you, having somebody that's never raised any kids is not good. Individuals who have 2 children, they may only want to raise 2 children. Individuals who have older children, all of a sudden you tell them they're going to have a couple of little ones in the house for the rest of their life till they grow up. Some of us who are grandparents understand. I've seen some folks, and there may be some here in this church, you're raising your grandchildren. I give you kudos for doing that, but I'm here to tell you that's a tough gig. I am a firm believer that grandparents are meant to spoil those kids. Mom and dad walk out the door, you give them all the candy you can so they go home and be hyper, and their parents pay for the way they acted when they were young with you. We have one daughter, used to work for Brother and Sister Brown in Jackson. She married a Mennonite boy, and we have 9 grandkids just by her. And I'm here to tell you, we love them coming at Christmas, but I'll tell you, the best Christmas lights are the taillights leaving. And if you have to raise those kids when you're this old, it's not an easy gig. So I recommend that you find somebody who lives the basic same lifestyle, goes to the same church, instead of taking those kids out of their comfort zone and them going to different schools and different churches. They need their friends and their association from what they can have that's the same, because life is already different. Okay, so we're about to wrap it up. Do you need a family trust for your children? Yes. And we talked about that, and I won't go over it anymore, but you do need third-party control. And do you need a spousal trust? Now, that is a big question. If you've been given the blessings of a lot of money, you might want to make sure you have a spousal trust. What does that mean? That means, let's say, and it isn't true, let's say Evelyn and I, boy, I'm going to get myself in trouble here. We end up having $5 million, and half of it's hers, half of it's mine according to law, but it's all hers if I die, right? But here's the deal. If I die and she has all that money, and I don't have a will, or I just have a will and not a living trust, it's going to show up in the court records that Steve Drury left $5 million. Or if it's vice versa, she passes away and we don't have anything but a will and it's probated, it's going to show up in the court records. And you know, they have people that go and hunt for those records so that they can build a relationship because you're at a vulnerable place in your life. And they play on your emotions until they make you feel that they love you enough that they want to be your second spouse. And then when you get married, all of that money, if they divorce you, guess how much of it's theirs? At least 50%. So you put it in a spousal trust if you have a lot of assets. And you say, why are you telling? Nobody here knows that anybody has that kind of money. Hey, I've been around a long time. There's lots of folks that have money they just never told anybody about. So I'm going to talk about it. And what you do is you put it in a spousal trust, and your spouse can live off of the interest of the 50%, but not touch the 50%. Now, when both of you are gone, it goes to your family, the way you've said. But it protects you from somebody taking advantage. Does it make sense? So if you have that, we'll talk about it. And then, of course, the other things that you need is you need durable power of attorney for property management. They tell us that by the time we're 75, my age, 1 in 3 is incompetent of taking care of business. By the time we're 85, 1 in 2 are unable to take care of business matters. What if you become incapacitated? You have a stroke and you're in the hospital. Who's going to make health care decisions? You have to make a legal document that says who's going to make those decisions. You also can have what is called a living will. And you say in advance, I do not want to be resuscitated if I quit breathing, or I want to be given palliative care, drugs to keep me calm, but just let me go. Now, I sat at a table with 2 80-year-olds not long ago, and he said, oh, man, keep everything working as long as you can. Maybe I'll come back. And she said, not me. I'm ready to go. Let me go. So you can have differences as a husband and wife, what you want to have as care when you become very ill. Sorry about that. So you need to be able to state that in a legal document. And then, as I said, the letter of instructions for goods. I'm sorry. All right. Buckets. Why do you need a bucket? Can anyone tell me? Carry stuff. Okay. Organize and carry. And it's usually because you can't carry it all with one or two hands, right? So you put it in a bucket so you can carry it easier. So if God has given you a lot of assets, I recommend that you have what I call a bucket. It's called a revocable living trust. So what happens is you write on that bucket, your trust, who is going to take care of your business decisions and who is going to take care of your wealth if you become incapacitated. And then if you, kick the bucket, it says who's going to take care of those assets after you're gone. So if you have a lot of assets, it's a revocable living trust. And when you die, it isn't put in probate where everybody in the whole community knows how much money you left behind and how much property you left behind. And so again, it's one of those things that I will talk about. And then I wrap it up with talking to you about your local church here. You've given tithes and offerings and you've sacrificed and you've made this church. And this is a beautiful facility. You folks are to be commended with the sacrifices that you have made to have this beautiful facility. But I want to tell you, you can leave a legacy gift by an outright cash gift in your estate plan, or you can do a charitable gift annuity with the United Pentecostal Foundation. You get a guaranteed stream of income the rest of your life and your spouse's life. And then at the end, what's left over could come to your local assembly. We can do charitable remainder trusts. If you have assets and you're tired of managing them, you can give them to a trust. You can get income for the rest of your life. And then when it's over, it goes to the ministries of your choice, your local church or other places. A charitable lead trust. You might be young, like this young man here, and he might own a whole apartment complex, and he just bought another apartment complex. He doesn't want to manage the old one, so he gives it to this charitable lead trust. It goes to the church, the income does, for 15, 20 years. And then by that time, he's old enough to retire. He gets that money back to help him in his retirement, but he got a tax write-off and avoided capital gains charges when he gave that away. So I can help you with all those kinds of documents to think through how you can do the best for yourself. And then a retained life estate. If your children live in a nicer home that you've ever owned, and they've got more assets than what they need, you might want to consider doing a retained life estate of your home to this local church. Now, your pastor didn't know I was going to say all this, so don't look at him like he's asked me to do this. I've done this all over the United States. I've probably done 500, 600 of these seminars, so this is what I've done everywhere. And you do the taxes, the insurance, and the upkeep. But as soon as you take your last breath, the church has owned it, and you get a tax benefit up front for giving the church the future of your home. And then, of course, life insurance. You can name your church in your life insurance policy, 10%, 15%, whatever you want to do. And then tomorrow and Tuesday, from 9 in the morning till 10 at night, I will take a 2-hour break in the afternoon. I'm going to give 45-minute segment sessions to everybody who signs up. And we're going to fill out what I call a confidential estate inventory. I can do that in 45 minutes with everybody. And you're going to list who you would want to be your executor, who you want to be administrator of your assets and so forth if you pass away, who you want to be the responsible person when you do I'm sorry, my mind has gone far ahead of me here. The durable powers of attorney. Who do you want to pay your bills if you become incapacitated? Who do you want to make health care decisions? I had one situation where I was sitting there. I've never had it before, never had it again. The wife said, I don't want him making any health care decisions for me. Okay. I didn't ask any questions. So you have a right to say, and you get it in writing, and it has to be followed. So I want to help you put these kind of things together. It's a quick 9-page document. All I ask you to bring is, if you can, bring your insurance policies and your retirement planning totals that you have, who you have it with, and how much. Because I want to help you figure out, if you haven't been saving enough for retirement, what you need to do to be secure when you reach that age. Any questions? Sorry. Anybody have any questions? Yes, ma'am. Any retirement funds that you have. We'll be asking about all the properties that you own, how much you owe on those, because all that figures into how much insurance you need to have to take care of things. And if you aren't making enough money, I'll work with you to talk about where you go to get education based upon your talent to be able to make more money to take care of your family and that kind of thing. Yes, sir. I'm hoping your pastor pays me. No. I come because I believe in doing this. And always the pastor give me a honorarium for doing this. When I get home, I will spend another hour for everybody I meet with, maybe an hour and a half sometimes. And I'm going to create a letter for you, and I'll send back this confidential document directly to you. And I'm going to list all the things that I recommend in writing. I've already located 2 attorneys that are reasonable that I can direct you to do your documents around here. I don't have a life insurance agent. If anybody has anyone you'd like to recommend, I'd be glad to have their information and could direct people that way. I do have a certified financial planner that we've used for many years in our fellowship that I can direct folks to in that form. So what I do is I provide all of that, and I am on somewhat of a retainer, limited retainer with the foundation to be able to teach some of this and to travel some. So that's where I just love doing it. Anybody else? Yes, sir. That's okay. Do a what? No, you don't need both. Right. Well, a trust will have what is called it has all the same documents, but you put the assets, name them in, like the Stephen Evelyn Drury Revocable Living Trust. So our checking account, our house title is put in that living trust so that when we die, we own nothing. So it doesn't go to probate. But we still manage it while we're alive, and we do the same thing. We have our kids, 3 kids, get 33 1/3%, and one of them gets 33.4. So the whole deal is, if you have a lot of assets and you don't want everybody seeing it when you pass away in the public records, then you do a revocable living trust. It has all the same documents in it. It even has a pour-over will in it, which means if you buy something and you forgot to name it into your living trust, when you die, it automatically pours over that asset into your living trust. So it's the same thing, but it's a way to avoid probate. Anyone else? Yes.
Since your time is so limited and such, what other resources would you recommend people look at to learn more about this once you're gone?
Once I die, or when I'm... I know that.
Let's say after Tuesday.
Okay, after Tuesday. You can do a lot of Googling and research on your own. But to me, the teaching is the valuable part, but I do want to offer myself to help people figure out for sure where they should go. But you can do, if you like Google, you can certainly find a lot of things on there that will help you. And you have my email up here, should have. It's SM Drury, upcstewardship.org. And you can email me, and I'll be glad to answer any questions at any time. That's SM Drury, SMDRURY, at upcstewardship.org. I'm even brave enough to put is my phone number up there? Oh, that's my old phone number at headquarters. I don't have my cell number up there. But that's still being answered by people at headquarters, and they know where to find me. Matter of fact, Wednesday I have a conference call with somebody in I don't know what state, and I'm teaching the staff that's still there how to handle those calls, and they have asked me to be on the call with them, with this individual, so they can find me. I'm still helping them. Anyone else? You folks have been wonderful. And I want to tell you that food today has just been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. What a great team you have here. And your staff, they've just been amazing from everything that I've asked that they've done. Thank you so much. And by the way, there are books I didn't show you, but I wrote a book this last year about my life. She has one back there. They're $20. And it tells about the fact that I went through depression. At 51, we pretty well lost all the assets we ever had, and that's after I did all of this at the Children's Mansion. But you know what? It was a teaching lesson from God that even in your dark moments, God is still faithful, and He's helped us rise above that. We can all face things that we never dreamed would come our way. I was molested as a child. I had to deal with that. All those things are in that book telling you, and it's entitled Bitter or Better. And I've been with a lot of people that chose to be bitter in life, what happened to them instead of better. I refuse to let what's happened control my future. I'm going to be better along the way. And this book, it might be something you want to buy for somebody else who's dealing with issues in life. You can be better. You can change lives. And we've been honored to change a lot of lives and make a difference for the whole United Pentecostal Fellowship when it was all said and done, because I refuse to be bitter about the disappointing things that happen. Anyone else? Yes, sir. The reason you don't want to go probate is if you have a lot of assets. You don't want it to show up on the court records that everybody can go downtown and see. And some older communities, they publish everything in the newspaper. I don't know if they still do that here or not, but many times they do that. And you don't want everybody, if you have very many assets, knowing what you left behind, because they're kind of like ambulance chasers. They're going to go after you to make friends because they want to get into the pocketbook of the stuff that was left to you. So if you have very many assets, you want to consider doing a revocable living trust. And by the way, the sign-up sheets are at the back for those 45-minute segments. I have a total of 28. How many are left? Do you know approximately? Only 6 left for tomorrow. So if you're wanting for me to help you, work with you through all this, to give you a list of the things that you need to do, you need to go back there as soon as possible and sign up tonight. And I'll be glad to spend some time with you. God bless you. Thank you, Pastor, for allowing me.
Can we give Brother Drury a hand? Thank you, brother. Thank you so much. Amen, amen. So they're bombing the list back there to make sure they get on there. And right before we leave here, I want to remind you again of the Financial Peace University class. That's an important piece to go along with that. And Brother Philip Locke is going to lead that together with myself starting this Wednesday night for the next 9 weeks. So you'll come here to church like regular on a midweek. We're going to do a song of worship together, and then we're going to split out into the groups. And we have right here on the screen is a QR code that you can take your phone, take a picture, or take your camera on that and click on it, and it'll take and get you signed up for the class. And as we mentioned today, you're able to go through the class at no charge, which is really, really a neat deal. And and that's the work that Brother Nash does around here. A lot of people don't know this, but I don't know how many people he ran through Financial Peace through our church's license this last year. I think it was over 1,000 people. So, international. And so after this year, they said, yeah, we're not going to sell you another unlimited, but we're going to take advantage of it this year. And so you can jump in and be a part of that class. And we're going to allow you to be dismissed here and sign up if you'd like to. And while you're leaving, I promise you that you could see the video of Brother Church that was with us today and the church that they built there in Fiji in a matter of 3 days. So if they can cue up that video and show you, and you are dismissed in Jesus' name.
All right. It's beautiful out today, too. Amen.
Are you guys getting the trusses ready for today?
All right, here we are, end of day 2.5. We'll be finished tomorrow pretty early. We're putting the glass in, the doors in, got the roof on today. Had some really good help here from the locals. Last day. Last day. Come on, Elijah. This is my helper Seth. He helped me on the roof. He helped me wherever I needed something. He's a good carpenter's helper, and he's a good blessing from the Lord. Thank you, Jesus, for my friend Seth. Congratulations on the Here we are, Brother Williams. We're all done. Got the roof on. We got the windows in. We got the lights on. We got the platform built.
Praise
Say
the Lord.
a few words. Say a few words about
We're so
this church.
glad, we're so blessed to have brothers from Canada building the house of God. We're so fortunate that it has been built beyond our expected time and beyond the expectation of everybody. We can't imagine what we have achieved in 3 days. It is a tremendous blessing that has come into our lives. We love to thank you all for your kind support and love, and we only can give you our praise our best love to you all. God bless you all. Thank you so much.
This is Sister.
Thank
Tell
you
us.
so much, Canada. Thank you so much. This is something, just a miracle for us. This was bare piece of land, and now we have our church. And thank you for sending Brother Jim to us. He made it possible with the team. Thank you, Canada. God bless you. And thank you, Brother Jim, one more time. Thank you. We're praying for you.
Awesome. Praise God.
Praise God. But if you believe that these altars are going to be filled with people repenting of their
Brother Churches uses gifts in this area, and he says he has a vision, big vision, to build 50 of those in the next 10 years. Isn't that awesome? Praise God. Thank you for being here tonight. God bless you.